Hi, David. Let's
Hi.
talk about public intellectuals in historical context.
Well, I think what you've asked me to do is discuss the concept of a public intellectual, why it's in decline today, and what relevance certain public intellectuals historically and those that are sparse on the ground that exist today have towards the present culture, if that's what you call it. I think the first thing is to define what a public intellectual is and what a public intellectual is not. A public intellectual is a generalist, it's a person of ideas. It's a person who is not confined to a specific discipline, though they may originate in a particular discipline. So, for example, Chomsky originates in linguistics, but spends much of his career discussing world affairs, American global domination, and the ideology of the present world. Um, Camus started off and is primarily known as a writer of great fiction, but also wrote works like The Rebel and the Myth of Sisyphus, which were tremendous works of political philosophy and political engagement. So I think one strand of public intellectual is that they're not a narrow specialist, they're a generalist, and they're a person who's multidisciplinary. The other point is a public intellectual cannot be beholden to anybody. They cannot be at the mercy of an employment structure or the mercy of a boss or the mercy of a government. And a defining feature of a public intellectual has always been independence both of thought but of action, and the ability to fearlessly pursue thought and action, even though thought and action often rebounds in their face, and many of them have suffered as a consequence. Now, the problem with the present day and age, and you've asked me to divide this up into the 10 most significant public intellectuals, some living, most dead, who are relevant to the present day and age, is that the present day and age doesn't encourage that mindset. If you think about, say, the academics on the lecturing circuit, on the corporate lecturing circuit, they're appealing to big business, sound bites for big business, for the purpose of convincing the corporateocracy that they can actually solve any of the problems that they've been responsible for in the first place. More to the point, trying to appease the corporateocracy with neat, easy solutions and big ideas and blandishments. And they're basically just taking the paycheck and offering nothing. Or, like Jordan Peterson, they're writing this Boy Scout self-help guide, which is lacking in depth, totally superficial, and is nothing other than a kind of emergency aid kit to survive the 21st century. It's not confronting anything in particular. It's focusing on one's own personal survival, or how you survive all of this, or how you can be a good person at a certain rather run-down American level. So none of that is public intellectualism. And you've asked me to discuss what that is, and you've asked me to try and deal with who I think, both historically and presently, are the 10 most important figures to deal with the present dilemmas in the world today. And I propose to do that. Shoot.